Welcome to The Author Next Door, where hosts Angela Haas and Cassie Newell chat about the wild world of writing and publishing. Join them for weekly episodes and special monthly guests. Pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is episode 20. I'm Cassie Newell, and I'm here with my co-host, Angela Haas. And this month, we're talking about how to find the right professionals to help you on your writing journey. This episode, we're talking about our favorite people and companies who we've worked with and how to vet and find other industry professionals, because sometimes it doesn't always work out, right?
Exactly.
Oh, gosh. Right? So what is difficult about finding the right people, Angela? Like, I know you and I have been there, like especially when you don't know who you don't know yet, to even get word of mouth sometimes on the things you're looking for. So how difficult can it be? And what have you learned?
I made so many mistakes when I first started. I'm always hard on myself, but you just don't know what you don't know. But when you're just starting and you don't have maybe your solid writers groups yet, you're just sort of throwing darts at the dartboard to be like, well, I'm ready to find an editor. How do I do that? We stress a lot of times joining some sort of writers group is key when you're just starting out, because you can ask people, hey, does this sound right? Or how much do people usually charge for this? You know, what are the standards? And you can find groups on Facebook. You can find them, you know, in different ways, but joining an author group is key. I think from there, for me, I try to read some testimonials, do a little Google search, try to do a little research on someone, because I just was flying blind. And what was hurting me was the fact that I had no self-esteem because I was just starting out in this industry, put way too much trust into these individuals thinking they know more than me. They're the experts. I've got to listen and do whatever they say. And it's a balance. You have to learn how to take feedback, but you also have to trust yourself if something doesn't feel right. But I think that's what makes it so hard when you're just starting out, is because you maybe lack the confidence, you're struggling with imposter syndrome, and then you just don't know really where to look. If we're looking up a business, say, you know, we want to find a new dry cleaner, we Google it and read reviews and ask our neighbors. But in the author industry, self-publishing industry, you know, there's not a lot of like credentials, right? I mean, people can say, I'm an editor.
Yeah.
I like to edit and I'm an editor, and they don't always have to have something to back it up. And I think that's what makes it hard. So yeah, how do people, I mean, there are credentials though. I mean, what would people look at?
Well, it depends on the service that you're looking for. So whether it's book covers, editing, coaching, all those things have different credentials and different opportunities, either for your degrees, you know, experience. You don't always have to have a 4-year degree, you know, those types of things. With editors, you can become a part of different associations for editors too. And they go through a rigorous process to get those and be able to put them on their websites and things of that nature. They're also editing courses and classes to get certified. Same thing for coaches. Book covers a little different. I mean, that's design oriented. So seeing samples is awesome, right? To see those samples is really important. Also knowing if you're working with a particular individual that has done previous covers. Like if you're a reader, I don't know if anybody else does this, but when people say who is their book cover artist, I totally take note and I look them up. So like there's lots of ways. I also love services, which, just to list a couple, Reedsy is really good to find contractors on all of these services. So you can say what types of things you're looking for and it'll shoot it out. Another resource, if you're going the independent route, is ALLY, which is the Alliance of Independent Authors, and they have businesses listed too. and how they've vetted certain things. Some of them are just people in the listings, just like the old phone book days. I don't know if people remember phone book days. Then you can just look up. And then there's also ones that are vetted. You can also get coupons. There's so many things like those organizations do. And maybe even your local organizations might do as well. So as you said, finding a community is really helpful in the beginning, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think for listeners who may not know, Readsy, it's a little different in that it's a database of professionals and you do have to pay a fee. But the bonus with that is you have some recourse to say, hey, I had a bad experience, and they'll be responsive. So that's the way to go if you're really flying blind, don't have an author group, doing some research there.
Yeah.
Even though it costs a little extra, it may save you money in the long run because you're not just trying someone out that you may not finish with.
And the service, though, itself is free. So you can look up and have your own free service. It's just when you connect to the contractor.
When you book someone.
Yeah, someone, you pay through. Just like Fiverr.
Yeah.
Or any of those other services, too.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, it's only when you really, you pick 5 professionals. Say you're looking for a developmental editor. You pick 5 professionals, and then you can get offers from them, talk to them, see which one you're vibing with best. Then you go ahead and sign a contract with them. And then there's payment steps. It's all nice. And it just really, when I found one of my favorite editors through Readsy, I loved the process of you can make payments and you don't have to make the final payment until it's finished and you're happy, and they ask you for a review, feedback. So yeah, I like the process with Readsy, although
I've used it a couple of times
a little bit
too.
more.
Yeah. It can be.
But
what's also cool is if the favorite person that you would like to work with is unavailable, you can favorite them.
Yes.
And you can get notifications of when they're available. Yes. So I've done that before. So it's like it is a whole platform, really. And it's grown quite a bit over the years too. So
yeah. It's like they have almost everything. I think web services, marketing, they have all kinds of things. So yeah, check out Readsy. You mentioned the Alliance of Independent Authors. And for people who don't know, I think it's is it 120 a year or something like that? Again, you have to manage costs when you're starting out. And I mean, you manage costs your entire career, but when you're just starting out, you want to be really careful about where you're spending money. But what I love about, is it Ally or Ally? How do you say it short?
Ally is how I say it. Did I say Ally earlier? I might have.
I think I said Ally. So Ally, they have a database where if you're looking for a cover designer, they have sort of a writer beware database where you can try to find that cover designer. And if they're a member, and that means they're a little bit more vetted and they're saying, hey, we know that these people come highly recommended. So I think those are 2 places to maybe start. What do you think? Is there another
I think
place
those
that you
are
would
great
start?
starts. I think too, when you get a little bit further into the process of things, if you're going the indie route and you're doing all the things yourself, so to speak, and granted, when I say yourself, you're, contracting out, you kind of learn a lot too, because I've worked with editors where I've missed timelines, and editors have gotten really upset with me. I paid 50% to hold an editor before, and then I couldn't deliver. This was early on. And they were furious with me because they had let go other people to fulfill that. So I would also say, as you're going along in the contracting world, if you've not done that before, you need to be pretty set on when you can deliver too, because these people, this is usually their full-time job.
Yes.
So
yeah, you have to be very aware of your deadlines. And I think most people, there's been times when within a few days, let them know, hey, it was supposed to be Friday, it's coming Monday, and I stuck to that. I think
Yeah.
there's some grace, but yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And you have to give them
If
grace. If you're late, they're going to be late. They don't have
right,
to, get to your timeline because you didn't too. So I don't know. I
yeah,
was kind
exactly.
of, I don't know. There's a lot of people and companies you can go to for a lot of services, but I'm just kind of curious. Do you have any horror stories that you've learned from like that? Like I just admitted.
Did you see my eye twitch?
Uh,
Yes, I've had some horror stories with editors, and I'm excited. Our next guest is Alice Sudlow, and she's gonna talk all about the editing world and how to vet editors a little better, which I needed in the beginning. But I had an editor who just so unresponsive, just would take weeks to answer an email.
mhm.
And at first I thought they weren't even available, but I had used them before. And that's what's hard is I used them before. They were super great. And then something changed in the space between my first book and second book. And it was like a completely different person. But I kept hanging on thinking, oh, it must be me. I got to give them a chance. There's something going on. But that was the first red flag in that they would take weeks, maybe a month to answer a question in an email. I come from the business world. It's 24 to 48 hours,
Yeah.
72 if you send your email on the weekend. Authors, they're a little bit more creative. They don't necessarily stick to that, but I think you have every right to ask that up front. Like, typically, how do you communicate best? What's your turnaround time for answering questions, and get a feel for it then, rather than I kept sending email after email and then finally had to text this person and they were like, oh yeah, I'm getting on it. What they would also do was kind of triple book themselves and forget whose was whose
Oh
that they were
my
working on.
gosh.
Then, once we
No.
were in the thick of it, they were rewriting my book the way they wanted without track changes on.
No.
So there were some track changes, but then there was a lot where I had to do some research and compare my original draft with my second draft. And I was like, I did not write this whole section. I did not make my protagonist speak so that there's an exclamation point after every piece of dialogue. This is not my work. And I had to start over on a 100K manuscript
Oh my God, that is a horror story.
and find a new editor and then start over with a new editor when I had already made so many changes.
So I do have a piece of advice around editors. Currently, I adore my current editor that I use the most, but I consistently work with 3 different editors
Mhm.
because availability. I also, if I can, I try to keep the same editor in a series just because they've seen the previous work. And then you
Mhm.
kind of get this establishment. So that's been helpful. I have one editor that's just really good on the developmental side of things, but I don't need that as much anymore. So I haven't used them in a
Right.
while, but they also do proofreading, which I've done.
Sure.
So I do think for people that are really churning and burning, or even if you're just starting out, meeting and getting to know editors and their different services is good to have more than one for that reason
Yes.
right there.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because sometimes you need an edit on a certain timeline and they're just not available
They're
for
not
months. You kind
available.
of have to
Yeah.
plan ahead. What I do is when I know I'm getting close, I put out feelers and say, hey, I'm getting close on this one. Here's the word count approx. When is your next availability? And if I know it's going to be 3 months, then I can figure something else out. So yeah, I wish I had done a little bit more homework on the front end. I wish I would have asked for editing samples and really done more of a Zoom call to say, what's your style? How do you communicate? How fast do you turn things around? I should have done that
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
because sometimes we feel like I've got to get this thing edited and I've got to get it done taking a little bit more time to vet an editor will save you time and money in rewrites in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one editor who was also my coach in the very, very beginning, which was brilliant. And then he ended his company. And so I didn't have him for the last book. And I was just like, no, like, what am I going to do? But, at the end of the day, it works out. I don't know. I find editing kind of difficult. It's interesting because I'm a designer. So I get people who get really frustrated with book cover design. And I've never been frustrated yet. And I don't design all of my covers by myself. Actually, Magic, the very first one, no, sorry, the second book cover is the one I bought that was a pre-made. And then I made all the others match because I loved it. And then I got the designer involved and we kind of did it together. But I don't like illustrating covers very much. I mean, I do a little bit, but I hired out for that. I don't know. It's interesting when people would come to me, they're like frustrated with book covers and things like that, which can be really frustrating for those. How have you managed book covers? What have you done?
Well, my superhero series, I used Jeff Brown graphics, and he is so amazing and so talented. He does a lot of covers for really like trad pub authors. Mm-hmm. And I just loved because he illustrates it. And when he was doing First Strike, I was amazed at how I was just describing what I wanted, and he's just absolutely sketching it in front of my eyes. And he really specializes in fantasy and sci-fi covers. But he's a little more expensive. I was in this feeling like go big or go home, cover is everything, you've got to invest, which I still stand by, but I don't think you need to spend as much. I ended up having to redesign it anyway because it was not selling to the right reader because it was reading so sci-fi and not superheroine, superhero. From then, this happened when we went to what is now Author Nation. It was 20 books to 50K, and we started talking to Kathleen Sweeney at Bookbrush, and she designs covers. And I was telling her my plight, and I just love her anyway. I'm hoping we can get her to come on the show. But the Bookbrush started, they just did like mock-ups, and they have expanded into so many other services. So that's another recommendation that I can touch on in a little bit. But they do book covers that don't use AI, and that's another whole other bag of worms. If you want to use AI on your cover, and there are risks associated with that, but they don't use AI, and you keep the rights to your covers, and they designed some pretty amazing covers for my superhero series. So, and then for the romance, I love any yummy book covers, and they are yummy. And she's an illustrator. So, but I love it because she gives you some marketing materials. She'll make a special couple for you that's just for you. And she did a really great job. So people are going to listen to this. Are you openly designing book covers, or are you just really offering the pre-mades with Booklitical right now?
So I have 3 full-time clients who come to me, and one of them, her book cover's out and it looks so good. I love it so much. So it's NL Blandford, if you want to check out and you like thrillers. It looks really good, Escaping Victoria. But my company's called Booklitical Designs. I actually kind of just shut it down for pre-mades at this point because my other clients kind of keep me busy. And then, of course, I'm dabbling all the time. So it gives me energy to create. So I am a huge fan of pre-mades because, and I'm going to give some tips here real quick. So pre-mades, you can find them like on most companies will have pre-mades. Like the book cover designer has a lot, Miblart, Desmona. You're not really going to find those on Fiverr because those are contractors trying to get your money and do it that way. But when you find the opportunity for a pre-made and you're like, oh, that looks great, but the title won't work, they'll change the title, of course. However, you can always buy that and tell them to take the typography off. Because if you think your title might change or you don't know your pen name, maybe you want to add things, do that later with someone else or even yourself if you wanted. But you can buy a pre-made and have them change a main color, not a lot of colors, and you can have them remove all the typography on it. That
That's
doesn't
good
hurt
to know.
anybody's feelings because
Yeah.
they've sold a pre-made, and there's a lot. I mean, I can't even list them all, of groups in Facebook that they'll do seasonal pre-mades, and boy, you better be on it because those things go like hotcakes. And usually they're people that started a design and left it, and then the artist just completed it and changed it or what have you. So they're just selling them, and usually at a discount. That's the other benefit of pre-mades. They're always a little cheaper because you can't do a lot of personalization on them because then they become custom. They're no longer really, quote, a pre-made. So yeah, I took my website down and just started doing things through Instagram for that. And Instagram has a ton of book cover artists that you can find independently and then either go to their website or purchase through their Instagrams. And you can just kind of scan them and see what's available. I've done that 4 different times. I'm also that person when I get an idea, because I'm visual, I want the book cover.
Yes.
So I may buy a
Absolutely.
cheaper book cover and it may never actually get on the book. But I get it and I have it. Like it helps inspire me. And a lot of the time it'll matriculate into the actual cover, but not always. I have so many.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's talk about, though, a lot of people use Milblart.
Mm-hmm.
I have not heard good things sometimes about them. I think it's hit or miss, to be
It's hit or
honest.
miss because they have a whole company full of different designers. Yeah.
Yes. And so sometimes when I think you can get unlimited changes,
Mm.
but the problem is what I experienced with some of the author friends we have is they'd send it back to just get a small revision and something comes back completely different because it's a whole new designer.
Mm.
So it's not going to be, that's just word to, our listeners. It's not always the same designer. I experienced that with 100 covers as well. And again, we are not being critical. I am not trying to be critical. I'm just sharing my experience because I know some people have used 99 designs, 100 covers, Milblart, and had stunning covers come out of it. I think it depends on what you want. But when I had a cover idea and I tried to use 100 covers because I got a promo, they use like real like models that they're taking photos of, and it just wasn't working for what I needed because I needed superheroes on the cover, and that just was really tough. But if it's sort of beautiful typography and some background images, like if you're a fantasy thriller, I think maybe those are easier, but it did not work for what I needed for the sci-fi at the time.
Well, I will say the one thing I really like, if you don't know what you want in your cover, is to do a contest in 99 designs. I've done that too. And I've participated as a designer. But what's really nice is you pick your level and you give briefs and you give details of what you think you want. You can be really honest. You can say, I'm shopping for a unique design, or it needs to fit X, Y, and Z genre tropes, but I'm not quite sure what I want it to be. This is what's in my book, blah, blah, blah. And then different designers will pitch and give you designs to choose from. And you'll have a timeline in which you're reviewing those designs and you're picking your top 10, then you're picking your top 5. You may get up to 50 different designs. Then you're going to pick your top 10, your top 5. Then you'll start to give them revisions on what you would like for their independent designs. And then you pick a winner. And that's how they win the money in those contests. And I find those really good when I don't quite know what I want. But for me, if I see it, and then I'll know it. So there might be some people out there that might be like, but I don't know. You don't have to know everything, but doing it that way, you get a bucket of designers, versus just shopping. So
yes. And I think again, it just going to help you to do a little more research on the front end, but just to have an understanding that some covers are better done by different people, you know?
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
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 I dabble in
So,
illustration, but I'm not going to do it. Like I
yeah,
might have
I
a
guess
few
I should probably,
pre-mates, but I'm not going to like take on a custom client because I just don't feel confident.
yeah, I guess I should show my book and you should probably too. But like, this is Yummy Book Covers.
Yeah.
And she just did such a great job integrating the logo, got all that stuff, made a little cute baking thing. And then I have all this template that I can use for my own marketing. So
Right. Yeah, you want all
that's,
your
yeah,
assets. You should be
yeah.
able to have all your licenses and all your assets. Yeah, there's a lot of particulars. I think that way also about coaching too. So, for example, Author Accelerator, through their program, you can become a coach. I think Christina Stanley has her program. You can become a coach and an editor. Like there are all these different programs. And when you're looking for a coach, you want to find their zone of genius, right? To support whatever
Right.
you're trying to get out of that coaching relationship. And some coaches, I think you can find certainly on Readsy, but through Author Accelerator, which is part of Jeannie Nash's program, they have, I will match you with a coach depending on what your need is.
Nice.
And like you can put in what you're looking for. And the coaches that are a part of the program who've graduated or certified and said, this is my business model and these are the people I'm going to help, you get connected. And you either test a few out and have conversations or not, however you want to do that. But yeah, I think those are really good too in terms of services. I think there are just so many things in the indie world to think about. It can get a little
Yeah.
overwhelming. And sometimes hiring a coach is really helpful to go, okay, what should I do for an editing standpoint? What should I do for a book covers? Marketing. There's services for that too, for ARCs and ALCs, like all these things. There's so many different services. It can be a little overwhelming, but really
Right.
nuts to bolts. It's really about your budget, what you're naturally good at and comfortable with, and what you should hire out.
Yes. And speaking of coaches, though, I mean, a coach can help with different things.
Yep.
My first writing coach was not a total coach that helped me look at the business side, putting the novel together. She was just helping me stitch a novel together from scratch. But you have had coaches before where they're your weekly or whenever you're meeting cheerleader as far as like, here's a problem I'm having in my business as an author and how do I work through this? I will say if you're hiring just for a writing coach, it is helpful if they're reading and really fluent in the genre you're writing in.
Yeah.
And that may seem like maybe that is common sense. But again, when I connected with someone who happened to be a writing coach, and I really was looking for help as far as like, I didn't know, how to do the 3-act structure. I was just starting.
Yeah.
And she helped talk out almost every scene, every act, putting it all together, following the hero's journey. And then when I went to romance, I couldn't really use her anymore because she doesn't read romance at all. So I kind of outgrew it anyway because I
Yeah.
started to trust myself, and you learn. But there are other coaches that can help you with everything, not just writing.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, it depends
I
on what you
talk through
need.
just outline building with people. I talk through idea building. And then I love having a creative coach for my business and support. And at that time, when I started that, I was really digging into Clifton's strengths to really understand myself too. So it was kind of a 2-point bonus to do it that way. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We've talked about, I mean, coaching, editing, cover designer, those are huge pieces, but web design, marketing help, I have used Dan Wilcox. Hi, Dan. I wish you were listening. Devil's Rock Publishing, and he does phenomenal web design. And then he can also help integrate your email list too. So I had to give Dan a shout out because he actually was able to work my website so it's choose your own adventure. So it's over here for the superheroes and over here for the romance, which I love because I decided not to go to a pen name. But he's so great about meeting with you and talking things out. Word of mouth is really good on that one because Dan was recommended from a writers group. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known really how to find him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, word
yeah.
of mouth is really great. That's how I found Red Leaf Writing Word Services and
We
my
love
current
Amy. Hello, Amy.
editor. And I've gotten to the point where I like try to book out 6 months in advance. Like I'm that person, and I'm like constantly like, okay, or I'm ahead, or I'm switching projects like I'm doing now. I'm like, you were expecting these, but I'm gonna do this.
Right.
If
Yeah.
that's okay, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is that Joanna Penn and Jane Friedman, I would also say, are great people to keep on top of and be a part of their newsletters and activities, because they really kind of give you insight into the industry. I think Jane Friedman, she has a free one, but she also has a paid newsletter. But that's what she does. She stays on top of the industry as a whole. Her end of year stuff is fabulous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just being on top of the industry itself is really helpful in terms of services. And I mean, it's like with working with any contractor, you gotta vet them, do your due diligence the best you can, and then, go forward. And learn from it. It also, as you said, personality wise, you've just got to test it. I think that's the same too with finding, an agent. Talks about, finding an agent. And I've pitched to a couple of agents, and you have too. Like, you're trying to find that match in personality of what they want, what you're trying to also shop and develop a relationship with somebody that's hopefully going to be there for your entire career and not just one book, kind of thing. So it's all about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking a little more time. That's what I wish I would have told my past self. Take a little time, do a little more research. But sometimes things change while you're in the middle of something.
Yeah.
And I would say before you sign a contract, you definitely need to read all the fine print. There's been times I've been guilty of not doing that. And I would be a little alarmed unless it's a friend, because I've done things with friends where we're not signing contracts because we're colleagues and we're grown-ups and we're not going to stiff each other. But, there's been times when I was expecting a contract from someone and they just didn't do their business like that. And I'm like, but it protects both of us when you're using a service.
Yeah.
You
You
can
don't
build
get a
some
lot of
stuff in
those for
that.
book covers so much unless it's
No, not
custom
book
and
covers,
development.
but yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
saying like other services like editing and coaching and web design and different things. I mean, I've actually appreciated someone who has had a formal contract in the way that they do things and collect payments. It just means that they're pretty organized. Not
Yeah.
saying that someone who's less formal isn't, but
Right.
yeah, just see how they run their business too. That might change how you're doing things with them.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
All right. Well, this is definitely a great kickoff for the month. I was going to ask you, what are your personal updates for, gosh, what is this, May 14th? So, or the 15th?
Yeah. Yeah. I have one other recommendation
Oh,
though
I'm
that I did
sorry. I
two
went too
other. Yeah.
quickly.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure we were on Jeff Elkin's podcast, The Dialogue
Yeah.
Doctor. People, you should go find The Dialogue Doctor. We'll leave a link for his website, but Jeff has so many great services. He does some coaching. He'll do live on air where he dissects a scene with you. I did that once and it was so helpful. I learned in real time. He does dialogue dashes where it's weeks of putting together a book, writing, editing. I learned so much doing that. He also has a community around him. So dialoguedoctor.com can join his Patreon for like $2 a month. And if you're just starting out, that's a great thing to do. I also would look at Grace Promo. You introduced me to them, word of mouth. They're a division of Valentine PR. They were so helpful when I was launching my romance because I just needed that off my plate. They found ARC readers. They did the blurb reveal, the cover reveal, and all that kind of stuff. And that was so helpful to have like the graphics done and just know that even though there's a cost, which I thought was very reasonable, that part was handled. And I got a lot of reviews that were really good when I launched my romance. So Gray's Promotions, also something
And I
very
found them
useful. Yes.
through a book that was being promoted by Valentine's. It was Candy Steiner's. And I was like, let me check this out.
Yeah.
So watch other authors when they're launching and see what services they're using too. And I would recommend
exactly.
Pen Pal PR and Torch Lit as well. They're smaller, but I don't know. I enjoyed them because I got to keep all my ARC reviewers in my mailing list too. So, there's lots of opportunity for different groups out there for sure.
Yes. And we'll put a nice thing together in the show notes of all our recommendations. So yeah, cool. I just had to get those two in.
No worries. So let me rewind. So any personal updates?
Well, I have finished my second romance and that feels really good. So getting that off to editing, and you and I've talked about this. I'm like, which one do I start next? I have so many ideas, and I'm like, oh no, which one
And
do
I'm
I
so
do?
opinionated about it.
I know, it was really helpful. So it's really just catching up on marketing, although I was able to hire an assistant finally, which is helping so much. But just figuring out, I don't want any lag time. I want to get to starting something else. So I've just got to figure that out. So what about you? What are you working on?
So I get my first 15-minute audiobook listen to approve for Buttercream and Second Beginnings. So I'm super excited about that. And then my special edition anthology for my store is launching at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because you're crazy.
Because I am.
Okay.
That's okay. I wasn't producing the audio. That would be high gravity productions. Thank you. And so I'm really excited to have the anthology with all 4 books in that first series come out. That's super exciting to me. I can't wait for that and see how it does. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, my novels with my editor and it's going well, hopefully. Yay. All right. Let's do our table topics.
This is a good one. All right. Let's see. What's the wildest party you've been to? Yes, I want the gory details. We all do.
The list to choose from, I'm not sure. Do we go back to high school when I shouldn't have been partying like an animal? College or my bachelorette party? Like, I don't know.
I am really intrigued about the bachelorette party. Was the thunder from down under there?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I guessed it. I did not know that, everyone.
We went to a club, actually. We had paraphernalia on us as well. And of course, I was noted as the bride-to-be with a button, not a sash. It wasn't the age of the sashes yet. And I was very uncomfortable, but I went with it.
Yeah, they put like oil on themselves. I wouldn't know because I've never been.
It was an interesting time. I got a little wild.
With like a bridesmaid, or are those records sealed?
I didn't think they could touch me, and they were touching me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, if you're going to touch me. So it got a little wild.
Cassie. Yeah. Suddenly warm in here.
Yeah. Really? You write romance.
I know, but it's the middle of the day. Okay. Well, mine was always college because I started my college career at the University of Northern Colorado, and there was an exchange program with a Hawaiian university. So we had a lot of Hawaiian students, and some of them taught me to hula dance, but they would
Awesome.
throw parties that, I mean, just trash cans full of jungle juice, which was just a
Yep.
collection, melange, just a
All the
melange of,
alcohol and some Kool-Aid.
yeah, I don't know. We did put some fruit in it just to feel like we were getting some vitamin C and some benefits. And then there was always a frat house that threw a disco party. And I love disco. Everything that I am, I just would do disco parties all the time. So those got a little wild, but it was the Hawaiian parties that I'll never forget. Those were so much fun. So
I used
yeah,
to go to karaoke
cool.
parties, all the frat and sorority parties. I was a wild child.
Oh, yeah, actually, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I was only because, I mean, I'm from Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. People are like, where's that? And it's like, exactly. It's not on, they didn't even bother to put it on maps because they're like, it's too small. No one cares. There's not even a gas station, so why bother? You know? So when I got to a college situation, where I was like, I'm on my own with 40,000 other people. I
Right.
went hog wild. Like, just as far as, just like, wow, I am unsupervised on the weekends. I can just do whatever I want. And it was just fun.
Yeah,
My freshman year was pretty
I
fun.
think I did more crazy, irresponsible things as a high schooler, which is so funny because my daughters were so not like me. Thank God. Yeah, and then I got to college and it was just kind of like, okay, I don't need to do this stupid, stupid stuff, but I can
Right.
still have fun. So, yeah, I don't know.
lived up a mountain pass. See, you're
Yeah.
just kind of living in the woods. And so I couldn't sneak out and do anything. I'd probably be attacked by a bear. And it was a 30-minute drive down to the city. So I
Yeah.
couldn't
There
be
wasn't a
too
lot. I was
irresponsible.
in high school in Oklahoma and there wasn't a lot, but we would get, I don't know
Oh,
how we
yeah.
get them, but we would get kegs and go by the lake. And it would just be, yeah, a
Fun.
party at the lake, you know?
Cool.
So
That's cool. Yeah.
anyway, all right, let's wrap up. So I'm going to say thank you for joining us today and let us know how you find great people to work with. Definitely let us know who they are. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps with visibility. Next week, we're talking to Alice Sudlow about how to find and work with a great editor. So until next time, keep writing, keep doing.
Bye.
Thanks for joining today's episode of The Author Next Door. Be sure to like, follow, and tell us your thoughts of this week's episode. Angela and Cassie would love to hear from you.